Welcome back to Sports Line, everybody. Jon Burton with you to the top of the hour, talking sports, 737-7767. Give us a call. I'd actually like Gus to call back. Gus, if you're out there, give us a call back. We'd love to hear back from you. That was a great phone call a few minutes ago. Appreciate it. As we mentioned, the Nashville Predators getting set to start a 3-game Western Canada road trip. They're in Vancouver tonight, about a half hour away from face-off against the Canucks. This is a Canucks team that came into Bridgestone Arena just a couple of weeks ago and beat the Predators, one of the rare home losses for the Preds so far this season. Ryan Johansson and Scotty Hartnell, two key players for the Predators that have missed some time due to injury. They are both game-time decisions, so we could see them in action tonight. Just a couple minutes, we're going to check in with our buddy Thomas Willis from NashvillePredators.com. Hopefully get an update on that and just get a feel for the Preds as they get ready to play the Canucks. They're going to be in Edmonton, Vancouver, Calgary, all those beautiful Western Canada towns. Great time to be there this time of year in December as we get close to Christmas. As promised, we are joined by friend of show. He writes for NashvillePredators.com, covers the Predators for that website. It's our buddy Thomas Willis. Thomas, happy holidays, man. Thanks for jumping on.
Hey, right back at you. Happy to do it.
Oh, the annual Western Canada road trip. Always fun, especially this time of year. The weather's going to be nice and toasty. I'm sure the Peter Laviolette and the players are looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally this has been a road trip much like the longer ones out to California. They can kind of make or break a month or even multiple months in the season. So 3 tough tests again, going Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary. So I know the Preds have liked their road game a little bit better in recent days. So if you can start off with a win, it's good to get hopefully 6 points under your belt.
Yeah, Thomas, if I have this right, I believe only 2 regulation losses for the Preds in their last 14 games. What's clicking for this hockey club right now?
Right now, it's been all about the offense. Ever since Kyle Turris was acquired, technically from Colorado as a part of the 3-team trade with Ottawa. I mean, I know he formerly was an Ottawa Senator, but technically comes from Colorado. Ever since he got into this lineup, even when Ryan Johansson missed 3 games with an upper body injury, you saw the offense continue to click. And key, meaning Kyle Turris, has made Craig better players, having a bounce-back year. He's made Kevin Fiala finally start to get on the score sheet. And then you already knew what Ryan Johansson, Philip Forsberg, and Victor Arvidsson were doing. I mean, you mentioned that stretch where they just played 13 games in 23 days. They basically won every single one of them, and not only within that, they were scoring 4 or 5 goals per game. So even if you're missing a Ryan Ellis on the blue line on your defensive unit, when you're scoring 5 goals a game, you can play with just about anybody. And I mean, I think that's full credit to Nashville over that stretch as well. There's some quality wins in that stretch as well. Beat the Blues, beat the Kings, beat the Jets, who currently are the 3 best teams in the Western Conference alongside Nashville. So yeah, I mean, unlike Predators teams of old, it's all about offense right now.
And Thomas, you know, you've watched a lot of hockey over the years. To me, it always seems, excuse me, it always seems like it's better to get off to a good start now in the months of October, November, December, because we know inevitably around the middle of January into February, there's going to be that lull for most hockey clubs. And when you could stockpile wins and points now, that won't hurt you as bad when you do hit that lull, that midwinter lull right around mid-January.
Yeah, one statistic that I've held on to for several years now is a pretty simple one in that you have to specify because it's a Canadian and United States sport, but on American Thanksgiving, the teams that are in playoff position 85% of the time, if not higher, end up making the playoffs. Meaning you can print out the standings on that day, and with the interchange of maybe 1 or 2 teams toward the fringe, or maybe one team gets hot down the stretch and replaces another, those are the teams that are going to make the playoffs. So you're absolutely right. The Preds have traditionally played very well in November, and it just kind of goes to show we call it a 3-point game, right? Because if you go to overtime and maybe a team you're trying to catch, maybe they even lose, but they still get a point. With the way the points and the standings are set up in today's NHL, it can be so tough to gain 5-6 points on a team, even in a month. So, as you said, it's so important to kind of get off to that fast start and get yourself in playoff position, because you're right. As the season goes on, the doldrums hit. I mean, tomorrow when they play Edmonton, the Preds will hit 30 games. So there's still 50-plus contests to go, but even still, you can kind of see, hey, you've got to put yourself in position. And it's very interesting to see, like, just how quickly a season can go from one to the other. Like, you're like, wow, these are the teams that are in playoff position in Thanksgiving, and they were terrible last year, or they were good, or whatever, vice versa, and yet it's just kind of proven itself year after year. If you've got a decent goal differential in your playoff position in Thanksgiving, I mean, it's very important. You're probably going to make the dance. We're
talking with Thomas Willis from NashvillePredators.com. Thomas, the Preds have had some time off between games. They haven't played since that Friday night shootout loss to James Neal and the incredible Vegas Golden Knights, one of the best expansion teams in the history of professional sports, no question about it. But Peter Laviolette's had some time to, give his players a couple of days off, and to get in some good, hard practices. We talked to him yesterday after practice. He seemed in a good mood. Seems like he likes the fact that he's had a chance to work with his team on the ice at practice for a couple of days.
Yeah, during that entire month of November, where they started the month with a loss and ended it with a loss, and then basically in between won every single game, they were playing every other day. I think the stat was they played 11 games in 22 days or something like that. So it was just day off game over and over. And you're right, when you're just trying to regulate, the mind and the body of your players, you can't even practice different things like the power play or lines and that sort of thing. So the practices have been great the last few days, and I'd say even bigger than that, Laviolette is going to be able to look at his forward group and get a full complement of options. Ryan Johansson, who had missed the last 3 games, and then Scott Hartnell, who already is actually out almost a month. He was injured against the Pittsburgh Penguins at the start of November. He's been out with a lower body injury. They both were activated off IR earlier today and are expected to play. So for the first time, Laviolette's getting Kyle Turris, who was traded for last month. He's got Ryan Johansson as first-line center, and then Scott Hartnell, who traditionally has been so good in front of the net on the power play. He's got all those guys available to him, and it looks like we'll see Scott Hartnell on the 4th line even with Colton Sissons and Austin Watson. That's just like such an amount of riches that he's got a guy that can actually score and then yet bring a physical element as well. That's probably, in my opinion, one of the best 4th lines the Preds have had in years. It's nice to have that up and down your lineup.
Yeah, and we talked about this yesterday at practice, Thomas, just the fact that the Predators have been able to win with a lot of their key players banged up, missing time. We still haven't seen Ryan Ellis yet. We understand he's getting close. You mentioned Johansson and Hartnell, but they've still been able to win and beat good teams. That really speaks to the depth of this hockey club, doesn't it?
Yeah, and just like you were saying back to the dips of the season in January or February, that's just something that is just always going to be the case in the NHL. When you're playing 82 games, when you're playing roughly every other day and back-to-backs and that sort of thing, it's a physical contact sport. They're going to be injured. It's nice that Laviolette for tonight's game has a full complement of forwards, but to be frank, in a week, he's probably missing another guy. That's just how it is. So have to have that mental fortitude to say, next guy up, let's abide by our system, let's play the way that we know our coach wants us to, and be able to get points rather than just kind of sitting around and saying, oh, well, we're missing this guy or this guy, and coming up with excuses. And you're right. I mean, it's funny to me that this is the way that it worked out, but the first 2 games Ryan Johansson missed, who, again, is one of your leading scorers, the Preds scored 10 goals, 5 in each of the games. So it's kind of like, wow, it just goes to show their power play, which is especially at home, has been so excellent. And then just the different guys stepping up. That's what you have to do in today's NHL.
One guy that's really stood out to me this year is a guy like is Craig Smith, Thomas. I want to get your thoughts on him. This was a guy that he battled injuries last year, looked like he was pressing at times last year, trying to do too much. There was talk that, he would end up in Vegas and not be protected by the Predators. He seems to be playing very relaxed and very free right now, and the guy's got incredible natural ability as a fast skater and a good shooter, and he looks like he's found his groove so far this season.
Right. You mentioned last season he had 12 goals in 78 games, so definitely below his standard. The 3 years prior to that, he'd scored 20 goals in each one of those seasons, and that's what David Poile, the GM, counts on him being. They just want him to be that 20-ish goal guy. I mean, 30 would be great, but kind of 20 has been the number for him, and you try to stockpile those guys for your first, second, third lines even. And he's the kind of player that when he's at his best, he's just using his speed. He's flying up and down the ice. I know Victor Arvidsson's fast. Craig Smith might be just as fast. He may be one of the fastest players on the team. And I would say credit to him, even before Kyle Turris came on this roster, you could kind of see that he got off to a faster start. That has just built his confidence so much. He was driving wide on defenders and that sort of thing and getting goals. And then now that Turris is in there and he's got Fiala playing as well alongside him, you've just seen that what was the second line before Joey went down with an injury, now they're going to skate as the first line tonight. So just credit to Smith. That's exactly what this Predators team needs. They signed him to the big deal before last season, kind of like, only 12 goals. We can't do this for 3-4 seasons. That's why you mentioned maybe the Vegas, being exposed to Vegas and taken in, that sort of thing. But this is kind of the player that they counted on. They've always liked him a little bit better than Colin Wilson. They liked his consistency a little bit better. Mm-hmm. I think you just kind of heard from Poyle saying, hey, give him another year. He can come out on the other side of it. That's why they move on from Colin Wilson, kind of double down on Craig Smith, and he's rewarded them so far.
It's funny you mentioned Colin Wilson. It's kind of hard to see Victor Arvidsson wearing that 33 and not think it's Colin Wilson. It's taken some getting used to, isn't it?
Yeah, right. It was so funny to me, all the guys that changed numbers this year. I mean, Kevin Fiala went from 56 to 22. Your Freddie Gaudreau do the opposite. You traditionally have the rookies wear these really high numbers because that's just what's available, and they go down. And yet Gaudreau went from 32 and upgraded to 89. So, yeah, it's funny to see all the different guys switch around there.
All right, Thomas, get your plugs in. How can people keep up with what you're doing?
Yeah, you mentioned it right off the top. NashvillePredators.com is the way to go. Number one, we've got behind-the-scenes video over there and great written articles. A special starting last season we've continued this year is we've actually gotten our players to sit down and like a players' tribune, meaning they just kind of sit down and write from their perspective, and those have been really awesome. So we've actually got one coming up on Ryan Ellis pretty soon. Like you mentioned, he's getting close. He's getting back on the ice. So I would kind of go ahead and tease that one. It's going to be great.
You guys do a great job for that website. You really do. So props to you. Happy holidays to you and your family, and thanks so much for coming on, Thomas.
Yeah, thanks, John. Happy holidays.
All right. Thomas Willis from NashvillePredators.com. Great website. They really do a great job. I highly recommend you check that out. Of course, you need to check out NewsChannel5.com first, then go to NashvillePredators.com. All right. When we come back, we will talk more hockey. We're going to hear from the head coach of your Nashville Predators. Here comes the holiday music, folks. Peter Laviolette will get you set for this 3-game Western Canada road trip. Game 1 coming up in about 18 minutes against the Vancouver Canucks. Stay with us. We're back after this.